No problem, no problem. It happens to us. I mean, it happened to us when we did our book launch that we lost signal for a little bit. And so it happens. So welcome, Marnus. And this is quite an intimate network of small businesses and entrepreneurs, mainly obviously in the Cape Town area, but we've got very, very diverse people with us. It's just been such an amazing opportunity the last couple of weeks. So Marnus, I just want to give you a little bit of a background. Not only is he a very, very dear friend and special colleague of mine, we met through Shark Tank, and the two of us really, I don't know, we bonded, and I think because we sat next to each other, and yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that. And I remember first meeting Marnus and literally just blown away by his authenticity, his humbleness, and just the type of person he is. So for those of you who don't know, he's a chartered accountant. He comes from Harry Smith, very humble beginnings. At the age of 22, he left Harry Smith to follow his dreams. He didn't know Johannesburg at all. I think he'd been watching Carte Blanche, am I right? And saw that this was like the place of gold. And he found out where their offices were. They were in Randburg, so he eventually found himself an apartment. He had a little bakkie and he had 37,000 Rand. And it was there that he started his business called Bean Counter, which is an accounting firm for small businesses. And he was desperate to make money, and in his head he had this dream that he was going to make R1 million. Bearing in mind he was 22 at the time, he was going to make R1 million at the age of 24, which he duly did. And a couple of years ago, he sold his business. He's rebought his business back a number of times. But not only is he a serial entrepreneur and a great, great human being, but he's also started a network called SME Africa, and probably has reached out to more entrepreneurs than I think most platforms, certainly in Southern Africa. He's got a massive, massive database of small, medium businesses and entrepreneurs, and has really done so much for small businesses in South Africa. So my friend Marnus, I salute you and I thank you so much. Marnus did tell me that he was taking a sabbatical and that he's not doing investments, he's not doing talks this year. And I begged him, I think I cried, and I said, we need you, we have to have you. And eventually he gave in. So Marnus, we just thought that, you know, talking about finance, and the section, if you follow your book, is cash in on your passion and make money doing what you love. And I think that if we as entrepreneurs do not feel proud that we are in this for some commercial gain, then I think we're in the wrong business. We're doing what we do because we love what we do, but we also need to make money out of it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are so passionate about what they do that they lose sight on actually making money. And making money for me has always really been about numbers and about, yes, it's about customers, it's about your passion, but passion alone cannot make your business successful. Customers alone cannot make your business successful. You've really got to understand the numbers. And I was very fortunate, and this is not about my story, but I started at the age of 21. At the age of 24, I was sitting at a boardroom table doing our first acquisition. And it was a massive acquisition. It was a company like 3 times the size of our company. And then at the age of 26, I was part of our listing. We listed our company. And I realized very early on that I knew absolutely nothing about finance. I'd sit at a boardroom table. Most of the people were CAs and I didn't know what they were talking about. And I went out and made sure that I understood numbers, because it is the key driver in business. If you don't know your numbers, it was one of the things I think that came out very strongly through Shark Tank, that we would ask people, you know, what is your net profit? What is your gross profit? People didn't know the difference between revenue, gross profit, net profit. And I thought I'd just quickly, before I'm going to ask Marnus some questions, you know, I believe very much in every entrepreneur must understand key indicators in their business. You decide what those indicators are. And I like to call them key financial value drivers. And those value drivers, you determine what they are. And I'm going to quickly go through them, and I'm happy to actually share this in a presentation, Lisa, with you after. But I think for me, the first value driver is growth, growth in your revenue. And your revenue is determined by only two things. Your revenue is determined through volume and price. That's the only thing that determines your revenue. You price your product or your service, and then it's volume. And really, growth is a key driver. And one's got to make sure that it's up there every day, that you know every single day what your growth in revenue, your growth in unit sales, your pricing, etc. And then efficiency drivers. And that is key in any business. The efficiency in terms of, okay, I'll talk car rental, it's the utilization of your fleet. If you're in a hotel, it's your occupancy rate. If you in the airline business, it's bums and seats. And that is, you know, whatever your business is, whether it's sales per square meter of your retail shop, whether it's customers through your door, whether it's productivity of your people, whether it's your own productivity, which is actually, it's got to start with you. Your own productivity is the key driver. How much are you earning for the business? And bring it down to the lowest common denominator. You know, how much are you earning per month? How much are you bringing into the business per week? How much are you bringing into the business per day? And how much are you bringing into the business per month? So efficiency is absolutely important. And as your businesses grow, you invest more in human capital, and you've got to make sure that you get a return on your human capital. And then, you know, customer experience, the efficiency of your customers. You know, some customers earn you more than other customers. And then, without going into too much detail, because I'm really happy to share this with you, because I do have some presentations on it. So the first driver, the growth; second driver, efficiency; and third driver is your financial drivers. And those are things like your cash flow. I mean, most business should know every single day what's coming in and what's going out. And whether that's your bookkeeper sending you a little WhatsApp message every day, you've got to understand cash flow. And it's been the biggest problem of businesses over COVID, that they were looking at their income statement and maybe not their balance sheet. They didn't have healthy balance sheets. I'm not going to go into that because that's Marnus' forte. Your gross profit margin, your profit before interest or profit before tax, return on invested capital, you know, how much money have you put into the business? How long is it going to take before you show a return? Because no business show a return like straight away in the first month. Your assets versus your liabilities, your cost of capital. So all of those are key financial drivers, and you've got to decide in every area. In terms of your growth, only decide on 3 important ones. In terms of your efficiency drivers, 3. And your financial drivers, 3. The 3 most important ones that are actually going to have an impact on your bottom line profit. So without going into that, I just really wanted to add that just to paint a picture so we don't lose sight, because we're going to get into this very exciting conversation with Marnus. And I've actually prepared some questions. So I think, Marnus, welcome again. And I think we need to address the elephant in the room, which is obviously COVID. And I think everybody in this platform has been affected or impacted in some way. And I just want to ask you, how do businesses, small businesses, Marnus, prepare themselves in the future for this type of eventuality? Because there are always catastrophes, there's always chaoses, there's always uncertainty. This may be a longer one than we've ever had before. But what is your advice to entrepreneurs and small businesses?
Well, first of all, hello, Dawn, and hello to everyone here. So I just need to say a couple of things before I answer that. Number one is I'm not a qualified chartered accountant. I never wrote my board exam. When I finished my articles, I was so excited just to get into business. And then I started my business and I never wrote my board exam. And now everyone's saying I'm a CA, but I never said I'm a CA. It's in introductions like this that people say I'm a CA. And then sometimes SICA invite me to some of the events where they invite the most successful CAs in the country. And then I go to these events and I usually start off by saying I'm not a CA. And then everyone in the crowd goes crazy because I don't think that it ultimately defines you. But I had an amazing journey through doing articles, but I never wrote my board. So just in case someone is recording this and saying again, Marnus is telling everyone he's a CA, I'm not a CA. Dawn, listening to you, so I did take a sabbatical this year. 2020, I decided not to do any talks. And the reason for that was that since Shark Tank, and Shark Tank gave us such a public platform and connected us to so many different entrepreneurs. And I've worked with thousands of small businesses prior to Shark Tank, but being on a public platform, it just changed it completely. And the one thing that I realized through the last 3 years was that every single business and every single person's situation is completely different. And when I post out something and I say this, then you've got 2,000 people reacting in a different way because their own unique situation is completely different. And coming on here, I'm very happy to share my own journey. I'm happy to share what I've learned from these thousands of business owners and what's been successful for them. But I think it's so important, and that's why I want to start off with this, is just to, whatever you hear, whatever you read, whatever Dawn is telling you about the metrics that's important to her, I really think that you take everything with a pinch of salt in your own unique situation. And also what I'm going to say now, like, this is from my corner of the world. It's from my experience. It's from the businesses that I've worked with. But I think it's so important that you just got to see it from your perspective and where you are. And then latching onto the COVID thing, and exactly to my point now, is when we read in the media, and I've seen some of the stats coming out, that they say 70% of small businesses will close. That's like 7 out of 10. And then we've just done a survey with Sasfin Bank where 63%, the survey is actually closing today, but as of today, 63% of small businesses are saying that they either haven't been impacted at all or the impact has been very minimum. So that's not the story that we've been hearing in the media. In the media, all small businesses are being hammered. Now, a survey that so far more than 1,200 people completed, 63% say that they haven't been affected. And then also in our own client base at the Bean Counter, we've lost 0.5% of our clients. We're servicing hundreds of SMEs. We've lost 0.5%, which is nothing. And then obviously a little bit bigger than that is currently under pressure. So I think it's so important to always see everything that we talk about in perspective. And then talking about what can people do and going forward and even during COVID. So one of the reasons why we haven't lost many clients is that we've only taken on a certain type of client. So if you've been under pressure prior to COVID, like restaurants, retail, these guys have been under pressure before COVID. It's not that they had these booming businesses and then COVID happened and all of a sudden nothing. Retail and the hospitality industry has forever been under pressure. And because of that, we never took on those clients because we just feel as a provider, we don't always want to be in that battle where you can't pay our fees, where you always want to negotiate fees. So I think if you had a very good business and you're not in a particular sector, then probably COVID did something to you, but it shouldn't have completely destroyed you. But I do think the businesses that were on the brink or just surviving, they had a much tougher time because suddenly your margins went from 5 to -5. But if you were on 20%, it's now sitting at 10%. So I think there's a lot of stuff that our clients did prior to COVID that helped them through this period. And I think there's a lot of stuff that we've learned from this period that we would definitely need to put into our businesses going forward.
Thank you, Marnus. And I think you raise a very good point that, don't believe everything that you read, because it actually can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But, in this panel, and not knowing everybody, but there are some people here who did lose, people in the health and fitness industry who obviously had to close their doors, people with bed and breakfast, and we've got people from different industries who did lose a lot. So that is a bit of a reality, but it's interesting that your stats are only 63%. So that's really good news for the country. But what are, yeah.
And if I can just clarify that, like I said that if you are on the brink of not doing well, or if you were loss making, then COVID was probably the final nail in the coffin, or certain industries. So there's definitely, or certain industries definitely, like you say, health and fitness, like you say, tourism. Obviously, you could have had an amazing business, like right now, it wouldn't be. But I do think that industry is definitely a smaller percentage, and that's coming out in this survey.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of those industries that were very reliant on tourism were in a very volatile market in any event, because the minute that terrorism hits or a pandemic hits, or anything that happens, violence in South Africa, crime in South Africa, corruption, the wrong president, the president says the wrong thing. I mean, we had that impact in our business. One statement by our previous president, and we would just have cancellations. The Makana massacre, I mean, just cancellation. So I think those industries are, by virtue of those industries, relying very volatile industries. But you mentioned that your clients were obviously doing something right, that you only lost 0.5% of your businesses. Maybe just share one or two things that they were doing right, because I think that would be very interesting for us to hear what were the things that they were doing that maybe we could put into some of our businesses.
Yeah, definitely. So a couple of things. One, I think if you were very profitable, and I'm thinking about clients here, if you were super profitable and the business was heavy, right? You maybe spend 100,000 Rand a month on something that probably wasn't necessary, but because the business is so heavy and you're so fat and profitable, you're not really realizing it. And what happened with those businesses is COVID came and it put them under pressure to become lean. And those businesses, what they did was they cut out all those expenses and they became a lot more leaner, and again, at the same profit they were prior to COVID, but they cut off all the fat. That's also why I think in the current environment, probably the employees are worse off in the current environment, because what employers have done is they've cut employees in most cases, but they're still able to carry on with the business as before, because they're more efficient, they're more lean, they're better. So that's the one type of business. The second one was, if you were very lean prior to this and you figured out all your systems and everything was just perfect, and COVID happened, then you were probably agile enough to change with whatever COVID came, or there were resources in place to deal with that. And that's definitely a big second part. Then I personally, and this year has been testament to that for me, is that I believe so much in focus, and I believe that you got to focus on one thing and become really, really good at it, instead of trying to do 6 different things. But what I've seen in my own businesses and with the others was that within that focus, there was still some diversification, that when something is going bad with the one part, that you could have carried on with the other part. And what we've seen in our businesses were the guys who were running in physical locations, but they also had a great online presence. They didn't suffer that much because the physical stuff just moved to the online stuff. So the diversification was very important, not just in products or services, but where you're selling or what you're doing. And then obviously cash flow is so important. and the guys who saved up, they obviously had cash to take them through this period.
Thanks, Marnus. I think cash flow was, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs were living month by month. So cash flow and building up your reserves is absolutely critical in any business. You know, don't spend all the money that's sitting in the bank. Literally build up those reserves and build up healthy reserves, not only for a rainy day, but technology is changing so quickly that, you know, you need to invest in technology. So just quickly, if I can just recap on some of the things. I think you said efficiency and productivity. Obviously, watch your costs. If your business was doing so well, the costs ran away, and all of a sudden COVID hit, and you start looking, thinking, what on earth am I spending 100,000 a month on a PR company or with respect to PR people? But, you know, all of a sudden you start looking at those things, and then focus. And I think focus is extremely important, because I think most entrepreneurs, by nature of being an entrepreneur, you're like all over the place and you're always coming up with a different idea. And you're always wanting to get into some other business. I've got the most greatest partner, Les, sitting there, who I love and adore dearly. But Les, every morning we have a meeting, a telephonic meeting, and Les has a different idea. And it's really great, because out of maybe 20, there might be one or two. So Les, keep that up and, you know, let the ideas keep flowing. And then you mentioned something very, very important, diversification. And I think for me, that's spreading the risk. You know, if you were in South Africa and you had other operations in Southern Africa or in Africa or whatever, you know, spread that risk. Don't just rely on one customer. Les and I had this discussion the other day when we were talking about, you know, if you only go into one market, you know, you have this huge risk if that market disappears or if that customer disappears. So make sure that you spread the risk, either whether it's customers or whether it's different markets or whether it's global and international. You know, people, a lot of people and a lot of entrepreneurs that I consult to or mentor, all of a sudden wanted to earn foreign currency and decided they're going to open an online store and literally just focus on the global market. And then COVID hit, and you know, they didn't have a local base. So I think that spread and spreading your risk is a very, very important message. And then maybe, Marnus, if I can ask you another question, just in terms of what is the most important financial tool or tips that you can advise? So what are the tools? I mean, I mentioned the value drivers, but what is your advice to entrepreneurs in terms of what is key? We have a couple of startups in this platform today who may, you know, need to understand the financial tools that you need. What I'm saying is, do you go out and buy an expensive software platform? Do you go and, you know, just invest in online? What are those tools that, if you're a startup or if you're an existing business right now in the environment that we're living in the moment, what are those tools that you think may be the one or two or three key tools that as an entrepreneur that you need right now in business?
Sure. Donna, I just want to add one thing to the previous point, and that's that just attaching to focus and diversification is, I'm such a believer that you got to stick to one business and you got to become the best in that. And I think the difference between the leader in any industry and the followers are so big. And I really think that's the important thing when we talk about diversification. It doesn't mean go and set up a restaurant and a spa. Rather, if you're in a spa, make more products there, sell to different markets. That's what I mean with diversification. And I think, like you say, people often tend to do so many different things. On tools, gone are the days of expensive software, big packages, anything that you want to do. I would recommend getting a cloud application that works for that. And it's cheap. You pay a monthly fee. When you don't need it, you switch it off. I recommend and use Xero as accounting software, Xero, Xero. In my opinion, they're by far the best and the leaders in accounting and cloud applications. But having said that, I don't think you can even think or talk about tools if you don't understand the business. You can have Xero or any other application in the world. If you don't understand your own business, all these tools and numbers and everything is going to mean zero to you. So what I would definitely say is, and I always say that, start with the end in mind. And again, the end is different for everyone. What do you want to get out of the business? Whether that's a number, whether that's a value, whether that's a monthly profit, anything. And then work back from that and get to numbers that you can measure on a daily basis. So a lot of people are chasing revenue, sales, and Dawn, you mentioned that. And for me personally, I don't believe in that. I believe in profit. Like, I don't care how much sales you're doing. If you're not making the profit, then it doesn't mean anything to me. So I don't think we by any means the biggest accounting firm in South Africa, but I would definitely put my money on the table that we're one of the most profitable accounting firms. And that's what's important for me. And then once you have that goal or thing that you want to achieve, then you work back from that. And that might end up that it's not numbers. So in one of my new tech startups, we've got our end goal and we work it back to sales, to how many meetings must we get, how many calls must we make to get those meetings, and we start measuring from there. So the top line is how many calls, then how many calls do we need to convert to meetings, in the meetings, how many do we need to convert to sales, what's the average price per sale, and then that filters down, and if we achieve all those things, we end up with the profit at the bottom. And that's the most valuable tip that I can give to any startup entrepreneur or any entrepreneur, is to go and find those numbers that will drive that end goal for you, and then to find the tools to actually measure those numbers.
Thanks, Marnus. So going back to the intro that I said, you know, the key value drivers, I think what I was alluding to is find what is key to you, whether it's, you know, efficiency, whether it's, you know, efficiency drivers, I think in any business are critical, because efficiency and productivity and all of those things. But yes, it could be as simple as, you know, how many widgets or digits you manufacturing a day or whatever. But as you say, everything has to actually drop down, and we must be unashamedly commercial and unashamedly proud that we're making money, because you know, money does make the world go round. So I think that is absolutely critical. And then you mentioned obviously a cloud application, not spending a lot of money on technology. In fact, I read a very interesting article the other day from Harvard Business Review of the $1.6 trillion that was spent on new digital applications, digital transformation. Just in the last 18 months before COVID, only 30% of that money is utilized. And I know, coming from a big business, the huge applications, the huge systems, the huge ERP systems that we implemented, you only use 20% of them. So why do you want all the bells and whistles? And it's very sexy when these people come and tell you about all these great things that you can do. But as Marnus's point, keep it as simple as possible. Break it down to the most simplest value driver in your business. And then Xero, they've done some work. Thank you, Marnus. You introduced me to them, and they've done actually some work with us in some of our forums, Les. They actually talk and facilitate in some of our forums that we do. And then start up with the end in mind, I think absolutely critical and important. Marnus, I just want to, and it's not on any of the questions that I've given you, but a couple of months ago in COVID, I saw that you were taken to task in social media, because you said anyone who just thinks that they're going to go out and put their business online at this time, you're making a mistake, because it's not just about having an online presence. Maybe just talk us through that, because I think there were people that agreed with you, but there were a lot of people who, I was following the threads, and then a lot of people who said, absolutely rubbish, we're small businesses and we've got to put our business online. What are you talking about? Maybe if you can just talk us through that, because it was quite a controversial conversation that you put out there. And I think it really, yeah, there were lots of alarm bells and lots of negativity from that statement that you made.
I love those statements. I love it. I love it.
Do it deliberately.
So Dawn, I think there are so many vanity stuff that we do as entrepreneurs. There's so many stuff that we do that absolutely just don't add value to anything we do, but yet we do it. And I think we must be ruthless with our time to really get to the critical things that will actually move the needle in our business. In my accounting firm, where I'm not operational anymore, I spend 3 hours a week on that business, but I do the stuff that really, really matters. And there's a very powerful exercise that I've been doing that I would recommend to everyone else. And that's, if you only had 2 hours in a week to work on your business, what would you do? And to really, really think about that. If you only had 2 hours, what would you do? Because that will bring out the stuff that will really move the needle. And then when you come up with that, try and do that for 40 or 80 hours a week, because that's the stuff that's really gonna move it forward. And when COVID happened, everyone just jumped onto an online shop. We must have an online shop. And that's cool, but will it really drive what you're doing forward? And I think in most businesses, the answer is absolutely no. People are going to spend whatever amount on setting up an online shop. They're going to spend a hell of a lot of time on setting up projects or products there and doing whatever. And then it's just going to lie there and no one is going to buy from it and no one will know about it and no one is going to find you. So what I meant with the post is there's so much more than just setting up an online shop. Yes, you got to set it up. Yes, it's got to work, but then you got to get people there. And the cost of getting people there needs to be less than your profit that you're going to make on the product. And whatever time you're going to spend there is going to be time that you're taking away from other parts of your business. So my post was, people are going to have a surprise because everyone is taking their last little bit of saving that they had going into COVID, and they're paying 20 or 30 grand to a digital agency to set up an online shop. And I promise you, if you go back and you talk to those business owners, it wouldn't have been worth it, because that online shop is probably just lying there, not making any sales. And their next problem is, how do I get customers to my online shop?
Very good point, Marnus. And I think there are a couple of people here who have done very well just, shopping on social media. I think, Denise, you do it quite well. Your Instagram posts. I mean, I think my advice to anyone is that, if you were posting once a month, now post once a week. If you're posting once a week, post once a day and make it relevant and exciting. And if you don't have a shop now button on your Instagram post or your Facebook post, then, you're making a big mistake. So you need the back end of that. But Denise does it incredibly well. Sorry, I'm sure many of you do, but I know Denise's stuff, and you've really got that perfected. So Marnus, do you think in terms of social media and the shop now, I mean, do you think that's a great opportunity for some of these entrepreneurs and small businesses and people starting up to use social media and just drive as many people as possible to their sites?
Dawn, one of the reasons why I took a break this year from all social is because I feel like all my opinions are so controversial, and then people are just giving me so much shit about it. But I'm seeing the results, and I'm seeing it in thousands of businesses where we're actively involved in. And I see the BS that people are preaching online is not always the case when it gets to real hard things. So when it gets to social, obviously it's a cool tool. It's important. It can drive a lot of sales, but maybe it's not everything for your business and what you need. So maybe someone who needs to sell to corporates, getting a salesperson and paying them 30K a month to go and network on LinkedIn and go and see people face to face or over Zoom calls and close those deals, the return on investment would be much better than you trying to run a social media page where you're trying to get thousands of likes on your social media page. That's not your target market. Your target market can be much easier achieved by putting a salesperson out and going to corporate and seeing them. So it really depends on per business and per individual. But I can tell you, and Dawn, you would agree with me, I hope, but since Shark Tank and having a public following, it doesn't always result in business. I think it's one of the worst return on investments that I've done over the last 3 years, investing so much into personal branding, because it's not paying off compared to a normal business. And I think so many businesses can get a much better return on investment on paid ads or direct sales or a sales team than what they can on social media.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. Just to one of the points that you made. So in on the platform, there are a lot of business to business companies, you know, HR, which you would need that person to go and visit face-to-face corporate customers. I mean, that's how we built our business, you know, pound the pavements and go and face-to-face, eyeball to eyeball with those people. But other businesses like a Denise's business or, sorry, the gentleman there, your name says Sarah, but you're not Sarah. You're in the fitness business. Marnus, you're going to love
Joseph. That's Joseph.
Joseph.
Yeah, I'll change his name.
Yeah, Joseph runs, he was boxing, Mojo Boxing, which I'm sure you've seen in Sea Point. And he's continued, you know, giving online. So for him, social media is absolutely critical. And I'm sure you're out there telling people about you. So I think it's a balance. You've got to understand what business, who your customer is, and then drive it through that particular distribution channel, depending on who your customer is. I met a lady yesterday, or I've been mentoring her. And again, I mean, she's ashamed to say this. And she said to me, Dawn, I don't know how to tell you this, but so she designs shoes. She's in Port Elizabeth. Her name's Jules. She's got a company called Pixel Shoes. She designs beautiful shoes. They're all leather. She gets them made in China and she sells them online. She doesn't have a shop. This is what she does. And she said to me, you know, Dawn, during COVID, I mean, shoes were essential products, except not flip-flops or Havianas. But she said she has never sold as much as she did during COVID. And only because she was out there, she made a presence. And she said, I am ashamed to say in the last 3 months, I've had my best 3 months of revenue because none of my competitors wanted to bring product in from China. I don't know if they thought that the virus was going to jump into the shoe, but they were too nervous to bring things in from China. She went full tilt. She just went out and she just put in orders. She put all her money into orders because she realized that at some point in time, people are going to have to buy shoes, you know, winter's coming, summer's coming. And she is the only person now who has summer orders because people didn't put orders in over COVID. So again, it's just understanding your business, taking the risk and just feeling very determined. And I said to her, you know, don't be ashamed about, you know, I think it's an incredible achievement that you've done so well through COVID. So Marnus, you know, keep sharing those posts. And, you know, we interviewed Mark Sham for our book. So Les and I and Sandy have just written a book. And I won't say it on this platform, but, you know, he's also very controversial. And I think you have to be. I've also gone into politics and I'm also a little bit controversial at times. But sometimes you really, really have to be. And I asked Mark Sham the question, you know, what happens if you post something and like, you're going to get like negative. Do you remember, Marnus, the first negative tweet that I got on Facebook? I phoned you late at night, I was crying. This person said, like, I was like, how on earth did she make that comment? And I was like, anyway, Marnus saved me. He actually got in touch with this woman and said, how can you say that about Dawn? But that's going to happen. You're not going to please everybody. People aren't going to like your stock. They're going to say, this is terrible. And Mark Sham, I asked him that exact question. And I said, Mark, you know, how do you handle all these insults, because he went out and put on social media this destructive relationship that we have with the ANC, and he wrote a letter to Cyril Ramaphosa, and it was one of the things that I think the most viral letter over COVID. And he actually said, I don't give an F. And what is one of your slides in your talk, Marnus? What is one of your slides? Don't give a F. And I can't say that word, but I think sometimes in business, we really, and as entrepreneurs, we can't please everybody. We can't accommodate everybody. And some of us try and do everything right. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but sometimes, you know what, you've got to just say no. And Marnus and I have both shared this stage, and I keep saying it to Leslie, she thinks I'm mad, but the platform that was created through Shark Tank and through whatever else, we have people, I still get over 100 emails like a week via Messenger, via LinkedIn, via whatever. Particularly now, I'm looking for investment. So please, Lisa, if I can ask you, this is not an opportunity to ask any of us for money for investments, because I'm also, I'm actually focusing on the businesses that I have. I'm not doing any new investments. And I don't believe that, you know, I can add value because I've got too many things. Leslie keeps saying this opportunity, that opportunity, and I keep saying, no, just focus. Do you agree with that point, Marnus? Because, I mean, you and I drove back from Sun City like a year, 2 years ago, and we both spoke about, we won't tell them what we spoke about, but we spoke about just how many people out there need not the finance, they need mentorship. Yeah. And they need platforms like this, platforms like your SME Africa.
Yeah, definitely, Dawn. So on the previous point, I was listening to a podcast the other day of Elon Musk, and he said something beautiful, and I think entrepreneurs can take it to heart when it comes to their own business and products. Because Elon is obviously super controversial, and he's getting a lot of flack. And he said that when you're in a war and someone on the other side is shooting at you, they're not shooting you because they don't like you and they don't like your personality and whatever. They're just on the other side of the war, and you can't make it personal. And I thought that was so beautiful. Like when someone is shooting at you, shooting at your product, saying something, it's just they're on the other side. They don't know who you are. They don't know anything. And you just got to brush it off in the same sense that you would do that. You can't get all emotional there, sitting with your gun and saying, oh, but why are you shooting at me? I don't deserve to be shot at. And I think that's a cool analogy to use when these bad things are being said, because we're living in this world of social media where hundreds and thousands of people are going to have an opinion about everything that you do and put out there. And then the second thing, like definitely, Dawn, I think I've always preached about focus and just doing something, but I think this year really cemented it again for me. So I'm in the same boat as you are, like just focusing on key things. And for the entrepreneurs out there, I do think mentoring is important. But I also think there's so much resources and so much knowledge and so many things out there that you can tap into. But I also think that we need to have a little bit more time to process that. I talk to so many entrepreneurs who's just reading book after book, watching video after video. They're just taking in all this information, and they don't have the time to actually go and sit down and think and say, okay, cool, I've heard that. How's that applicable to my business? So I do believe mentoring and places like this and platforms are important, but I actually think what's more important is to take this information and to distill it and to apply it in your own world.
Very good. Absolutely incredible advice. Thank you for that, Marnus. And Lisa, I know we're running out of time. I'm very mindful of time. We've got 10 minutes, and I think this is such a great opportunity. I'm sure there are questions for Marnus. Please don't be afraid to put your, I think, unmute yourself. I think that's the best way. It's the quickest way to unmute yourself and open it up. Lisa, are you happy? Les, are you happy with that?
Sure.
Open up for a couple of questions.
Yeah, I've actually got a great question here from Devora in the chat box. Do you want to read it, Dawn, and just...
Okay.
And
it's
then
so true.
maybe...
Put boundaries and know that we can't and shouldn't try to please everyone. Know what
But
is...
before that...
Oh,
before
no, sorry,
that?
I don't. As a consultant, facilitator, and coach, what are your thoughts about viable hours and commoditizing one's service as a business coach, facilitator? Is it so fascinating about focusing on what matters, those critical levers that drive business forward? I appreciate this perspective and being very critical about one's focus. Marnus, is there anything that you can add to that? I think it's a very good comment that Deborah has made.
Yeah, so I think the first comment that I want to make is in the accounting industry in 2011, 2012, every single accountant was billing per hour. And we weren't allowed to publish prices. It's against the accounting bodies, SICA, SIPA, you weren't allowed to publish prices. But we just saw the world changing, and we said that we don't think that billable hours are going to be something in the future. And we started packaging services for a fixed fee. And we started advertising this fee. And we got reprimanded by all the bodies that we can't do this, and we got warning letters and whatever, but we just stuck to it because we really believed in it. And I think if you go to 50% of accounting firms now, they charge a flat fee. So I don't think that billable hours are the way to go going forward. I think it's just going to be harder and harder to maintain. So I do think it's changing. And it's a great business model. Instead of us recording our hours and then trying to justify the hours that we spend, we've now got thousands of businesses on retainers, and they're paying us fixed fees, and we know what's coming in, and we're collecting via debit order, and it's an incredible business, and most other accounting firms are now doing the same. And I think that same pattern will repeat in other industries that are not there yet, especially places like legal firms. And lawyers are now where we were 10 years ago, where they're saying, no, legal is different, it will never change. That's what everyone said. When the world is changing, your industry will change. So I definitely think that that's something that will be in the past very soon. Dawn, while
go.
Sorry, no, I just want to say, while I'm on the chat here, we've got a nice cash flow template that we've done for the bean counter with a nice spreadsheet, and it guides you on how to set up a cash flow, how to plan cash flow. So I've just posted that link in the chat as well, if there are anyone looking for something like that.
Excellent. I think that's very helpful. Thank you, Marnus.
Absolutely.
Great.
I'll share that also in with the group. But Marnus, can I just ask you a question from, if you don't mind? You know, at ORT Jet, we engage with a lot of creatives. So a lot of creators have taken what may have started as a hobby or a passion, and it has kind of organically grown into a business. And now they're running businesses because they might not see themselves as businesses, but they're running a business. What advice, over and above what you've given us already, how do you advise a creative to adjust to a finance mind or understand finance so that they realize it's important, but how do we shift between that creative mind and the financial mind? Because it's quite different and it's quite tough.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is what I said earlier, like when we're talking about business and entrepreneurship, we always think that, look, you now need to become the next Bill Gates and build Microsoft. And we're now all on this journey of how are we going to be Microsoft. But, and that's also one of the lessons in my own journey. Like, I wanted to be part of a listed company. And then when I was part of a listed company, I realized that this is now the worst time I've ever had in my entire life. And I think it's so important to define what you want and not let the world condition you into what you want. And maybe you're creative and you just want to create more income than what you would in a salary. And then that's cool. Then don't grow. Don't try and set up a business. Don't worry about your uncle who's now trying to give you business coaching of how you're going to set it. That's not what you want. You're creative, make income. That's it. But then if you do decide that you want to move on, then those are different skills that you got to learn. And either you need to invest in doing that yourself and educate yourself, or do a course on Udemy, or go and find a business coach or accountant or someone to help you, or you need to find a partner that can do it for you. And in my own experience and seeing so many different businesses, I think if you're very creative, the admin, the strategic, it will always kill you. So go and find someone who's really amazing at it and partner with them. And the two of you together will be so much more better than you could be individually. And we're also giving ourselves a hard time. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about, because so many of my friends are creators and they're giving themselves such a hard time because they can't do finances, and they don't want to do their tax, but they're forcing themselves to do it, and they're doing a very bad job. Stop that.
Absolutely. There's a comment here, funny enough, from a creative, I hope you don't mind me saying that, who makes the most beautiful, beautiful jewelry. And she actually says, the more money I make, the more I spend. How do I curb that?
So here comes another controversial thing. So growing up in my 20s, I spent a lot of money. I never went into debt, and I still don't have any debt, but I spend a lot of money. And I believe that if I didn't spend that money, I wouldn't be where I am today, because staying in beautiful hotels allowed me to meet beautiful people that have helped me on my journey. And when I listen to financial advisors and business coaches and podcasts where they like, save money, don't spend 20 Rand on your cappuccino. If you spend 20 Rand every day, it's 600 Rand, and 600 Rand compounded over 900 years can buy you a house. I really believe that's BS. And I think it's finding that balance between, especially as an entrepreneur, if you're an employee, yes, you got to save. You're not gonna have this lump sum money coming in at any point. You got to save and you got to prepare. But when you're an entrepreneur, I really believe that you got to invest in the stuff that will help you to create the mindset, meet the people, to build your business. So how do I curb that? I don't think you need to curb that if it's good spending. I think it's creating a balance. Like, don't go into debt to have a lifestyle. And make sure you've got enough cash for a rainy day. But I'm definitely not a fan of not drinking cappuccinos because you're going to save 20 Rand a day.
I think, yeah. So just if I can just add to that, Lisa, and I think starting up a business and being given great opportunities as an early age, and understanding my flair for entrepreneurship, and then listing this company and growing this company, I can totally understand what happened when Marnus sold his business to a listed company, because then you are beholden to your shareholders, to all your stakeholders, and you better know when you're standing and giving your year-end presentation to analysts, you better know your numbers. And I just felt after, more than 3 decades in the industry, and one of the reasons why I hang up my corporate hat was because my mantra has always been, from a young girl, do what you love and love what you do. And all of a sudden, sitting in the boardroom one day thinking, is this what I love to do? I'm doing like what I love. I'm at the helm of a very big business, but do I really want to be sitting here just, and Marnus, in a corporate listed company, it's only about the numbers. Am I right? I mean, that's the focus. They just want a return for their investment. And when you start looking as, am I doing what I love? Then you need to change direction. And I don't for 1 minute ever regret the opportunities and the learnings. But I did get myself into an absolute corner. I mean, I was able to go and study finance, and because I was so bad at it, I put so much time and effort into it, and I actually managed to get an A for finance. I got a distinction. And marketing and creativity and sales, that is like my passion in my life, I actually was so bad. I think I got 50% or something. So, you know, sometimes you overbalance and overcorrect something that's actually not important. Why would I want to lose my creativity and my marketing flair and my, you know, strategic thinking, and put myself into a box that I really didn't love? So that can happen. I just want to warn you, for those of you who've got businesses, hopefully these businesses are going to be big businesses one day, and you're going to turn yourself from being an entrepreneur to being an entrepreneurial leader. And there's a big difference, and hopefully at some point in time during the course, we can talk about, you know, the mindset of an entrepreneur, the mindset of a leader, and the mindset of an entrepreneurial leader. There's quite a difference. But as Marnus will tell me, no, there's no difference. It's all BS.
But Dawn, I think that's next week is leadership, and I think we definitely are going to touch on that in our next course. But I think it is 25 to 10, and I just want to say thank you, Marnus, for a wonderful session. I certainly learned a lot. Yes, I think that focus thing is definitely a thing for me. I do try focus, Dawn. But, there's so many exciting things happening at the moment, and there's so many opportunities. But I did love your newsletter that you wrote last week, Marnus, and it really resonated with me. And that was the one thing you said is do less. And I love that, because I think as entrepreneurs, we actually are just sometimes trying to do too much. So thank you for your insights. I love your newsletters. Obviously, I'm a huge fan, but thank you for that. But I think just in closing, if I may, I just want to share my screen. And I think the question that we want to ask you is, did you know that the global economy produces about $80 trillion per year? And this is approximately $220 billion per day. And I think our question to you all as entrepreneurs is, what are you doing to attract some of this? And, you know, exactly what Marnus said, you've got to weigh up how you're spending your time with your goals and understand the value of your time. And I think when you do that and you focus, I think that's where your success can come from.
Thank you, Marnus, so much for agreeing to join us today. It's been very valuable. And as always, you've given a different perspective on things. And it's a very simplified perspective that we as entrepreneurs, sometimes we don't want, you know, all the clutter and all the high intellect, because it really, you know, if we're running a business, we don't need that. So Marnus, really thank you for your openness, your authenticity, and just everything. Is there anything you'd like to maybe say in closing?
Say again?
Is there anything you'd like to maybe leave us with, a message?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me here. Thanks for forcing me, Dawn. No, I think like it's a beautiful journey, and I think I came from absolutely nowhere, and I created a life for myself that I really enjoy today. And I think that's the power of entrepreneurship. And I really think everyone can do it with a lot of hard work. But it's not just hard work, it's also really about smart work. And you can work so hard every day. If you're not working on the right things, then you're not going to come there. And I think every day we just need to do that. We got to work really hard, and we got to work really smart. And it won't happen tomorrow. And I think that's why so few people do it, because we always want it tomorrow. But I really believe if you do something for 5 years and you really give it your all, that you will get where you want to. But it will happen in 5 years and not tomorrow. But most people will always just wish they started 5 years ago instead of starting today. So yeah, all the best, and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Marnus. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Les. Thanks, everybody. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.